Okay, so we are going to move on to descriptive measures today, which is Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is broken into 5 lessons. Measures of center, measures of variation are the first 2 lessons. And then we have Chebyshev's rule and the empirical rule, which talk about how the information is spread out. And we have the 5 number summary and box plots. And then the discussion about population and samples and how descriptive measures affect those. So let's go ahead and get started with lesson 3.1, measures of center. And first measure of center that you are familiar with is the mean. The mean is just the average of the data set, and we just add them together and divide by the number of numbers. So that's pretty self-explanatory and one that you've used several times in the past. The second one is the median. And so the median is the middle number, but sometimes you don't have a middle number. If you have an odd number of numbers, like we do here, then the median is just the number that's in the exact middle of the data. But if you have an even set of numbers, then the middle number is actually going to be between 2 numbers. And if that's the case, you have to add those numbers together and divide by 2. You want the average of the 2 numbers in the middle of the numbers. And so that would be the median. And then the final measure of center is the mode, which is the one that occurs most often. And so we can have a modal situation, which is where we have one mode. We can have a bimodal situation where you have 2 modes, but we wouldn't have anything where we would have, if there's 3, a tie for 3-way place for the most in the data set, then there would be just simply no mode. But what I want to show you today is how we can do this with our calculator. And so if you take your calculators out, one of the things that we're going to be able to do is find this data with our calculators. And so I want you to take a look up here at this first data set, and I have already gone ahead and put these in my list. But if you go to Stat and Edit, and just go to list 1. Here I have 300, 300, 300, 940, and that's what I have here. I have all of these values entered into my list. And then what I'm going to do is go to Stat and Calculate, and I'm going to go to one variable stats. And if I click Enter, and enter again, it'll tell me several things that I want to know. And first of all, the X bar, that's the average, 483.85. That's what we have down here. Okay. I also have the median value. So if I scroll down here, the median is 400, and you can see that's right here. What I don't have is the mode. And so instead of doing all of this, finding the mean, median, mode, by hand, we can just do this by entering the data into our calculator and finding the mean, median, and mode. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of this slideshow. And so we have our data sets there, but let's take a look and see what happens if the data is skewed one way or the other. And so if I have a data set that's rightly skewed like this, these numbers that are way out here that are really big are going to pull the mean over, but they don't pull the median over. So think about it this way. If you have a class where the top student in the class got 100%, but the teacher decided, well, I'm just going to give the top student 100 extra credit points and give them 200 extra points. Well, it's not going to change your middle value, okay? The middle test score will stay the same, but the average is going to go way up. So in rightly skewed data, the mean is going to be pushed to the right. If it's symmetrical, okay, then the data is going to be, the median and the median are going to be the exact same data points. And if it is skewed to the left, then the mean is going to be pulled to the left in this direction, because these really small numbers are going to pull the average that way, but the middle score would still be the middle score. So if we take a look at these houses in Southwest Allen County schools that have sold recently, we have a $135,000 house, a $140,000 house, and if you look at all these prices, 177, 180, 185, 186, 195, 199, 212, and then 885,000. So we want to figure out which measure best represents the measure of center. So if we take that data and we use our calculators and find the mean, median, and mode, here's what we get. One of these measures, though, doesn't do a very good job of finding the center value. As a matter of fact, man, if you take a look at the mean here, 237,000, that's bigger than all of the numbers except the very last one. That's because this number of 885,000 pulled the average up higher, but it didn't pull the middle value up any higher. The middle number is still the middle number, the mode is still the mode. These two numbers do a much better job of actually calculating what the center of the data would be. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about a lot is which measure is the best measure to count on with a given set of data points. And so that's what assignment 3.1 is about. We will do our homework assignment on this in Math Excel, and then we will start 3.2 the next day in class. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you soon. Actually, let me talk about one more thing. We don't use this very often, but if we have what's called trimmed data, a trimmed data set, what that means is that if we trim the data, what we're doing is we're taking out the highest and we're taking out the lowest values, and we're finding the center of the rest of the data points. This happens a lot if you have an outlier that's either too big or too small in the data, and you want to just kind of ignore that outlier. And so if we do that, the mean of the data on the left is 449, and the mean of the data on the right is 423. So the other thing that I want to mention is summation notation. So some of you probably know about this already, but if I wanted to find the mean, okay, which is the X bar on our calculator, we could use this formula. The mean is the sum of all of the data points. This sigma, capital S in Greek, is the summation notation. That means you're going to take up all the data points and add them all together and divide by the number of numbers. And so we're going to be using summation notation a lot here during this unit, and so I want to make sure that we become a little familiar with that. That is what 3.1 is about. So good luck on your homework assignment, and we'll see you tomorrow in class.